What's up, everyone? Welcome to the No Butts About It YouTube channel. I am Josh Butts, and today we're going to be talking about the Bengals tight end room competition heading into training camp. I just made a video about the running backs and what I think the Bengals will do with Zach Moss and Chase Brown. So if you haven't watched that, make sure to go check that out. But today we are talking about the tight ends. So let's get started after this. So the first guy that we are going to talk about is Mr. Mike Gesicki, who the Bengals signed this season in free agency on a 1-year, $2.5 million contract. Gesicki is listed at 6'6", 245 pounds. He had a few years with the Dolphins, then he went to the Patriots, and this was a very exciting signing for many Bengals fans, as he was someone that Bengals fans initially wanted before he went to the Patriots, and now he is a Cincinnati Bengal. He will likely be the tight end one when all is said and done. I think he pretty much has that locked up. He is also, in my opinion, going to help alleviate some of the loss of Tyler Boyd. I think he'll help with Jermaine Burton and Andre Yoshivas in kind of splitting those snaps. And that is because Mike Gesicki doesn't usually line up in the traditional tight end spot. He usually lines up in the slot or as a outside receiver more often. He's also not really a blocking tight end at all. He had 4 pass blocking snaps last year with the New England Patriots, and he only had, it's a small sample size, but he did well on those 4 pass blocking snaps. He's used much more often as a run blocker in New England, and he was meh, like a little above average. Some games he was just awful. It's hard to tell. These are PFF grades I'm going off of as well with film, which those two things seem to show an accurate representation of the PFF grades, but who knows? They could have been a scheme thing as well. Sometimes players have more success on new schemes than they do with others. Bengals don't have a history of having a great run blocking scheme to begin with, though, so I am hesitant about that. So I hope that Mike Gesicki is able to help in the run blocking game, but also signing Trent Brown and Amarius Mims should alleviate some of that need at the tight end position, at least a little bit. His receiving grades dropped as the season went on, which I thought was interesting. His best receiving grade, if I remember correctly, was week 1, and then it just slowly got worse as the season went on. And part of that could just be because they had Mac Jones and then Bailey Zappi, and there was some communication issues at the quarterback position. But also, Hunter Henry kind of became that guy that they were using. If you remember last season, if you watched the New England Patriots games, Hunter Henry became Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi's guy to dump the ball off to. And so I don't think Mike Gesicki got as many opportunities as he might be getting in Cincinnati, because we know Joe Burrow does love his tight ends and he loves to elevate that position. The next player that we're going to talk about is Drew Sample. And he is someone that Bengals fans are very familiar with. He's been with the team since 2019 when he was drafted in the 2nd round. He just signed, or he has been extended to a 3-year, $10.5 million contract that he is playing on right now. His strengths are as a blocking tight end. This guy is not someone you are going to want to throw the ball to very often. You can throw the ball to him and he might catch it, but he is primarily a blocker, which if you have been around the channel for a little bit, you may have seen my previous video I put out when the Bengals signed Mike Gesicki, that I thought he was very complimentary. He was very complimentary to Drew Sample's abilities, and that is Mike Gesicki can catch the ball. He has that ability. We've seen him have it in Miami. Not sure what happened in New England. And then Drew Sample is more of that blocking type guy. And we've also seen where the Bengals are kind of moving Drew Sample into that fullback position to be a lead blocker more often, or just be an option on flat routes, which when Drew Sample was receiving, that was where he thrived. He thrived on the short little just flat routes, maybe get 2 or 3 yards. He had occasional situations where he would maybe get an intermediate pass, but he wasn't reliable. As much as I like Drew Sample, I think he's been good for the team, but it's just a fact of the matter. He loses the ball sometimes or bobbles it on those intermediate passes. And so those flat routes where I think he will be the best player that he can be for the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, I don't really have anything more to say about him there. He is 6'5", 255 pounds. So about 10 pounds more than Gesicki, and he is a little shorter. So that could help with blocking. That's where I want to see Drew Sample, though. But those two guys, they've locked down their positions. We know Mike Gesicki is probably going to be the tight end one, barring some major camp breakout from someone. And we know what type of player Drew Sample is. Like I said, we've been watching him play since 2019. This video isn't really about those guys. Now, the first guy that might be in a competition is Tanner Hudson, who had his breakout season last season playing behind Irv Smith. He'd been on the practice squad since 2022, but he hadn't really gotten a chance to play till last season when Irv Smith was struggling and got hurt, and just the whole Irv Smith nightmare went down. He did re-sign a 1-year contract this year with the Cincinnati Bengals. The 6'5", 239-pound Tanner Hudson is looking to continue his breakout season this upcoming, or breakout time, I guess, not season, in Cincinnati this upcoming season. Now, Hudson is primarily used as a slot receiver when he is lined up as a receiver, and he's one I'm kind of iffy on, because this is going to sound dumb to some people, and I understand why it's going to sound dumb, but I wonder partially if Jake Browning and Tanner Hudson's chemistry is going to be better than what Joe Burrow and Tanner Hudson's chemistry will be. And that's just because Tanner Hudson and Jake Browning spent a lot of time on the practice squad together. So when they both got elevated to the active roster, that could have just been that Jake Browning was more comfortable throwing to Tanner Hudson, because he'd been throwing to Tanner Hudson this entire time with the Bengals. And so we may see some regression there on Tanner Hudson's part. I'm not saying it will happen. It's just something that I wouldn't be shocked to see, mate, because Joe Burrow has guys he's more comfortable with. He's going to be more comfortable throwing to Jamar Chase, to T. Higgins, these guys he's been throwing to. But of course, they're going to be in training camp together. They can build that chemistry. Joe has always done a very good job of building chemistry with his tight ends, with the exception being Irv Smith. And again, that whole thing was just a mess. Tanner Hudson was not used as a blocker often, but he has shown proficient run blocking ability when given the chance. This is going to be another guy who I think you're not going to have him in as a run blocker, but he can be used if he's needed. I'd put him in as Mike Gesicki's backup personally. Or if Mike Gesicki needs a rest, this is a guy who you can trust to catch the ball on some short routes, be a nice escape valve option for Joe Burrow, but he's not going to be anything insane. But he'll probably make the active roster. I'd be kind of surprised if he doesn't, especially if the Bengals start listing Drew Sample as a fullback. I think that Tanner Hudson will be a good option at tight end 2, and then just use Drew Sample kind of wherever and use Tanner Hudson wherever. Now to the rookies. The rookies are my favorite part, honestly. Like, the reason I made this video is because of one of these rookies, and it's not this one, but we're going to talk about him first, and that is Erick All, who was 6'5", 250 pounds. drafted in round 4 of this year. My concern with Erick All is he had 2 season-ending injuries, including a spine injury in 2022 and a torn ACL in 2023. He's only played about 10 games the last 2 seasons. He's a little too similar to Drew Sample, in my opinion, as a receiver. We're starting to get to the point where we are just redrafting guys who we have already, and we're not improving necessarily at the roster. Drew Sample will, when he catches, he will catch passes that shouldn't be catchable, and then he will drop the one that hits him straight in the chest. And that's kind of where we're at with Erick All as well, from what I have seen. But he isn't as good of a blocker as Drew Sample. He needs to work on his blocking. This is a pick that, like, if you've been around the channel for any amount of time, really, you know that I root for all these guys. These are all guys that I'm going to root for. I'm not going to be like, aha, I told you Erick All wasn't that good of a player. No, I'm going to be rooting for these guys. I want all these guys to have success. That is my goal. That being said, I'm also realistic, and I recognize that this might be a bit of a reach of a pick. I'm not super excited about the pick. I did do a grade video where I talk a little bit more about that. But I think if one of these 4 or 5 guys that we're talking about gets cut, it would probably be Erick All. And the Bengals, I think, recognized that they were kind of playing with fire this draft, because they not only drafted Erick All, but they also drafted Tanner Mchlachlan, the 6'5", 244-pound tight end out of the University of Arizona. He was drafted in round 6, and he was actually, according to NFL.com, projected to go rounds 4 or 5. So he kind of fell a little bit past what they thought he was going to go. So this is the guy. This is why I made the video. I couldn't really justify just making an entire video about Tanner Mchlachlan, but I really wanted to talk about Tanner Mchlachlan. So if you made it to this point, thank you, because this is why I'm here. This dude is so much fun to watch on film. If you have not watched Tanner Mchlachlan on film, then I don't know. And I'm going to be honest, I hadn't watched him until the Bengals drafted him, because I wanted the Bengals to take a tight end earlier. So I was watching I was watching Jatavian Sanders out of Texas, Brock Bowers, Ben Sinnott, who I love, Cade Stover, those type of guys. I had not watched Tanner Mchlachlan. But now that I have watched Tanner Mchlachlan, I love watching it. His film is so much fun. He broke Rob Gronkowski's record at the University of Arizona for most receptions by a tight end, and he had 79 receptions that season. He didn't play in 2021 due to a torn ACL, so he does have that injury history. But you know what? Last season, he was like, it's not an issue. We got it all figured out. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. I'm trusting that he will be okay. It happened once a few years ago, and we're moving past it. He has some crazy athletic catches on tape, and these are the type of catches that made me fall in love with Ben Sinnott. And I'm talking like he is running, and he's got the ball to his back to the ball, and then he turns around at the perfect time to catch that ball. His snap reaction is great, and his chemistry with the quarterback is on display in this situation. And I think this is where Joe Burrow thrives, is when a quarterback is able, or when a tight end is able to establish good chemistry with their tight end. And if Tanner Mchlachlan is able to develop good chemistry with Joe Burrow, those two will be unstoppable. And this will be such a fun duo to watch. And the Bengals may have finally found that tight end that they need in round 6. And before you say, oh, he's just a late round tight end guy, like, who cares? Guys like George Kittle are found in the late round. There are a ton of late round tight ends who do fantastic in the NFL. So don't let his draft pick scare you. Tanner Mchlachlan just go watch the tape. Just go. I mean, look up Tanner McLaughlin highlights right now, and you will see what I'm talking about. The dude is insane. He is so much fun to watch. And now there is the argument. Okay, University of Arizona, they're not playing these super defenses all the time, but at the same time, like, still, you can see what he's doing. It's not even just the defenses that he's playing are necessarily bad, and they play good teams too. But his what amazes me is just his ability to know where the ball is at all times, even when he isn't looking at it, and make corners and safeties look silly. Now, I will say where he excels exceptionally at doing that is in zone coverage. Most of his catches that I saw were on seam routes, and he did a very good job at setting up right in between the different zones and knowing where the corners and safeties would be uncomfortable coming after him. And that is where he thrived. He would go get between two zones, put himself on an island to where neither defender really would move towards him because they thought the other guy had him, get the ball, and then he was gone. That's a great thing to have in a tight end. And if he can continue to do that in the NFL, once again, I think this duo is going to be so much fun to watch. He does show potential as a blocker, and I would like to see him get better at that. I think that he is our best option when it comes to potentially having a balanced tight end who can do both, who can block and who can receive, which is what I really want in a tight end. I know the league is going towards this receiving only tight end, like kind of like Travis Kelce. Kelce blocks sometimes still, but he tends to be a giant receiver. And I still like to have that extra blocker if you need him. I think if he moved his hands inside more or was a bit quicker, he would be able to hold those blocks. I think he does have potential to be used in some jumbo sets, help out on the line on those short runs. Again, you do have Drew Sample as well for those jumbo sets, so maybe you won't need him, but if it came down to it, I'd like to see where we could. You always want to have as much depth as possible so you can have as versatile as an offense as possible. And Tanner McLaughlin he excites me. He's fun to watch. He is a great player, and I really, really hope we get to see a lot from him his rookie season. If it comes down to an Erick All versus Tanner McLaughlin battle in the tight end room, I hope and pray that Tanner McLaughlin is the one to make the roster. Obviously, I'm going to be watching during training camp, seeing what they're doing. And if it's just clear Tanner McLaughlin isn't cutting it, then yeah, okay, Erick All. But as it stands right now, I would go Tanner Mac. Tanner Mac every time and twice on Sunday. That's just, I'm excited for him. I love what I've seen from him on tape. Now, of course, the Bengals did keep 4 tight ends rostered last season. They had Mitchell Wilcox, they had Irv Smith, they had Tanner Hudson, and they had Drew Sample. And if Drew Sample gets moved into an official fullback position and the Bengals still decide to keep 4 tight ends rostered, then none of these guys would really have to worry about being kicked off the team. But if they keep only 4 tight ends rostered, one of these guys won't be on the active roster. And you could also have a situation where Erick All is still rehabbing from his injury, so he might not even be available for the first half of this season or this season at all. But Tanner McLaughlin should be, in my opinion, the tight end 3 on this team with the potential to be moved up to tight end 2, depending on how Tanner Hudson does. I think Tanner McLaughlin, given some time, does have that potential to beat out Tanner Hudson as the tight end 2 on this team. And this is all presuming Drew Sample moves into that fullback position or is moved as sort of a fullback tight end hybrid. But overall, Tanner Mac is my guy who in the tight end room that I am paying attention to this offseason. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Am I just completely off? Am I getting too hyped for all the wrong reasons? And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us out. About 98% of our views are from people who aren't subscribed. So people are watching, and we appreciate you for watching. But please remember to subscribe. Until next time, I'm Josh Butts. Go do something nice for someone.